Los Angeles, July 1972. A Tuesday morning that begins the way Tuesday mornings begin in Southern California in the summer, which is with the specific quality of heat that arrives not gradually but all at once, the sun already asserting itself at 9 in the morning with the particular authority of a California July that has no interest in easing anyone into the day. The Olympic Auditorium on Grand Avenue is a building that has seen most of what Los Angeles has produced in the way of spectacle over the past 4 decades. Boxing matches and wrestling exhibitions and the particular controlled chaos of competitive sport. And this morning, it is filling with the specific crowd that martial arts tournaments attract in 1972. Serious people, practitioners and coaches, and the devoted followers of various styles who come not for entertainment, but for the specific pleasure of watching technique applied under pressure. Men in suits and training clothes mixed together in the bleachers with the comfortable informality of people who share a language even if they have never met. By 10 in the morning, the auditorium is 3/4 full, the air already carrying the particular smell of a space that has been used for physical competition for 40 years, old wood and industrial cleaning fluid, and the specific electric quality of a room full of people who are paying attention. Outside on Grand Avenue, the Tuesday morning traffic moves with its usual indifference. Buses and cars, and the particular Los Angeles energy of a city that is always going somewhere and never entirely arriving. And none of it has any awareness of what is about to happen inside the building it is passing. Bruce Lee arrives alone. July 1972, 31 years old, wearing a dark jacket and dark trousers, moving through the auditorium entrance with the unhurried economy that everyone who spends time around him eventually notices and then cannot stop noticing. The specific quality of someone who has removed everything unnecessary from every motion until what remains is only what the situation requires. He is not here to compete. He is not here to be seen. He finds a seat in the 3rd row near the center aisle, sits, and becomes still in the way that he becomes still, which is completely and without remainder. The stillness of someone who is entirely present, rather than merely occupying space. The people around him do not recognize him immediately. A few look twice. Most do not look at all. He is a lean Chinese man in a dark jacket sitting in a seat, and the auditorium has other things to look at. He has come because he is always learning. Because the specific philosophy that has driven every decision of his adult life is that there is always something to observe, and something to absorb, and something to integrate. And a martial arts tournament in Los Angeles in July 1972 is a room full of people doing things with their bodies that are worth watching carefully. The morning's program begins with the junior divisions. Lightweight competitors moving through their kata with the specific combination of precision and nervousness that junior competition produces, the techniques correct, but the bodies not yet fully inhabiting them. The gap between knowing and being that only years of work closes. Bruce Lee watches with the quality of attention he brings to everything that interests him, which is total and direct and slightly unnerving if you happen to glance over and notice it. The attention of someone who is reading what they are watching, rather than simply registering it. Coaches at the edges of the competition floor call out corrections. Judges make notes. The morning moves forward with the organized efficiency of a well-run tournament, each division completing and giving way to the next. The crowd's energy building incrementally as the skill level of the competitors rises toward the senior divisions that everyone came to see. Bruce Lee does not take notes. He does not need to. His memory for movement is the memory of someone who has spent 20 years treating every motion he observes as information to be processed and stored and evaluated against everything he already knows. It is at 11:15 when Steven Seagal enters the auditorium floor. He is 20 years old, 6 feet 4 inches, and 240 pounds of a young man who has been training Aikido since he was 7 and who carries the specific physical confidence of someone who has spent 13 years developing a body and a skill set that have so far been sufficient to dominate every room he has entered. He is wearing a white gi with a black belt, and he enters with 2 training partners, both also in white gi, both significantly smaller than he is, which is not an unusual circumstance, because most people are significantly smaller than Steven Seagal at 20. He carries himself with the particular quality of someone who expects to be noticed, and is accustomed to being noticed, and has incorporated this expectation so completely into his bearing that it is no longer a performance, but simply how he moves through spaces. His blonde hair is thick and slightly wild from training. His face carries the open, confident expression of someone who has not yet been surprised by anything a room has shown him. The auditorium notices him the way auditoriums notice large people who move with confidence, which is immediately and without being able to entirely explain why. The Aikido demonstration is scheduled as an exhibition between the morning and afternoon competitive divisions, a showcase of a style that is not yet widely known in the Los Angeles martial arts community in 1972, and the auditorium watches with the attentive curiosity of practitioners who are always interested in technique they have not seen before. Seagal and his 2 partners move through the demonstration with genuine skill. This needs to be stated clearly, because what happens later does not diminish what comes before it, which is a 20-year-old with 13 years of serious training demonstrating a sophisticated martial art with the specific fluency of someone who has put in the work. The throws are clean. The joint locks are precise. The energy redirection that is the foundation of Aikido philosophy is visible in every technique. The larger principle made physical, the idea that force need not meet force directly, but can be received and redirected and used against its own momentum. The crowd appreciates this. Genuine appreciation, the specific sound of practitioners recognizing technique, and Bruce Lee in the 3rd row watches with the same complete attention he has given everything this morning, reading the demonstration the way he reads everything, looking for what is true in it and what is missing from it, and what it reveals about the person performing it. Seagal's 2 partners take the falls with practiced skill, rolling and recovering with the smooth efficiency of people who have spent years learning how to land safely. The demonstration builds in complexity, the techniques becoming larger and more dramatic. Seagal moving through his partners with increasing speed and confidence, the performance finding its rhythm. At one point, he lifts one partner completely off the floor with a single arm, the physical display drawing a genuine reaction from the crowd. Because, whatever else is true about Steven Seagal at 20, the raw physical capability is not in question. He is large, and he is strong, and he has trained seriously. And the combination of these things produces something that the auditorium finds worth watching. His face during the demonstration carries the specific expression of someone who is enjoying themselves in the particular way of people who are good at something and know it and are showing it. The clean, uncomplicated pleasure of demonstrated competence. In the 3rd row, Bruce Lee watches the demonstration with the same expression he has had since he sat down, which is calm and complete attention, reading the technique and the body producing it simultaneously, the 2 streams of information arriving together and being processed together. It is after the demonstration concludes, when Seagal is at the edge of the competition floor, accepting congratulations from several coaches and practitioners who have come down from the bleachers, that one of his training partners leans toward him and says something quietly. Seagal turns and looks toward the third row of the bleachers. He is looking at Bruce Lee, who is sitting where he has been sitting since he arrived, in the dark jacket, still, watching the next group of competitors warming up on the far side of the floor. Seagal looks for a moment with the expression of someone processing a piece of information and deciding what to do with it. Then, he says something to his partner and begins walking toward the bleachers with the loose, confident stride that is simply how he walks. The stride of someone who expects the path ahead to be clear and generally finds that it is. Several people near Bruce Lee notice Seagal approaching, and the specific quality of attention in the auditorium shifts slightly. The way attention shifts when something that was not on the program appears to be developing. He stops at the railing in front of the third row. Bruce Lee looks up. Seagal is large above him, white gi, black belt, blonde hair, the physical reality of 6 feet 4 inches and 240 pounds of 20-year-old martial artist standing at close range doing what physical reality does at close range, which is assert itself. He looks down at Bruce Lee with the expression of someone who is being friendly and is also aware of the size differential and is not entirely separating these two things. He says that he has heard of Bruce Lee. He says that Bruce Lee is in the movies. He says this the specific way that someone says something when they mean something adjacent to what they are saying. The way that in the movies contains within it a set of assumptions about the difference between what happens in movies and what happens in real life, and which of these categories the person being spoken to belongs to. Around them, the people in the adjacent seats are very still, in the specific way of people who have registered that something is happening and have decided to witness it without intervening. Bruce Lee looks up at him. He says that he has seen the demonstration. He says it was good Aikido, in the even unhurried tone he uses for everything. The tone that carries no excess and no performance, simply the accurate delivery of what he actually thinks. Seagal hears the compliment and does with it what people do with compliments when they are 20 and confident, which is receive it as confirmation. He says that Aikido is the most complete martial art. He says that in a real situation, against a real opponent, it is unmatched. He says this with the specific declarative confidence of someone who has trained seriously and competed seriously and won consistently and has not yet encountered the particular experience that revises this kind of certainty. Bruce Lee listens with the quality of attention he gives to everything, which is complete, and says nothing while Seagal is speaking, because he has nothing to add to what Seagal is saying while Seagal is saying it, and he does not add things to situations that do not require them. What he says next is the thing that the people who were there that morning will repeat for years. He says it with a smile, the easy, performative smile of someone who is making a challenge they expect to be declined, who is offering something they believe is safe to offer because the other party is not capable of accepting it. He says, "Stand against me for 30 seconds, and I will call you master." He says it looking down at Bruce Lee in the dark jacket in the third row of the bleachers in the Olympic Auditorium on a Tuesday morning in July 1972, with the complete physical confidence of a large young man who has just given an impressive demonstration and is talking to someone who came as a spectator and is sitting in a seat and is considerably smaller than he is. He says it as a kind of gift, a gracious offer, the generosity of someone who believes the offer will never actually be tested. The people in the adjacent seats are no longer pretending not to listen. Several people in the rows behind have leaned forward. The tournament organizer in the gray suit has looked up from his clipboard. Bruce Lee is quiet for a moment. The specific quiet of someone who is not deciding whether to respond, but is simply completing a thought before responding. Then, he stands up. He does not stand up the way people stand up when they are preparing for something. He stands up the way he stands up from any chair, with the same economy and the same absence of announcement. He is standing now, and the size differential that was already visible from the bleachers is now fully visible at close range, which is that Steven Seagal is 6'4" and Bruce Lee is 5'7", and the distance between those two measurements is not small. Bruce Lee looks at Seagal and says, "All right, one word." The word of someone who has heard an offer and accepted it without drama, because drama is not something he adds to things. Seagal blinks. He was not expecting this word. He was expecting a different word, or several words that amounted to a polite decline. And the word he received is not that word. And he takes one moment to process the gap between the word he expected and the word he got before his expression reassembles into confidence, and he nods and steps back from the railing. They move to the edge of the competition floor. Word passes through the auditorium the way word passes through spaces full of people who are paying attention, which is quickly and without announcement. The specific current of information that moves through a crowd when something is about to happen that was not on the program. Competitors and coaches and spectators orient themselves toward the two figures at the edge of the floor. Seagal's two training partners move to give them space. The judges at their table look up. The tournament organizer, a compact Japanese-American man in a gray suit who has been running martial arts competitions in Los Angeles for 15 years, stands from his chair at the edge of the floor and watches without intervening because he has been in this world long enough to recognize certain moments, and this is one of them. 500 people in the Olympic auditorium are paying attention to two figures at the edge of the competition floor. And the specific quality of that attention is the quality of people who understand that what they are about to watch is real, which is different from the quality of attention given to demonstrations, which is appreciative but comfortable. And this is neither appreciative nor comfortable. This is the held breath attention of 500 practitioners who know enough to know that they do not know what is about to happen. Seagal takes his stance. The stance of someone who knows what they are doing and is doing it correctly. Weight distributed, hands positioned, the body arranged in the specific geometry of Aikido readiness that 13 years of training has made automatic and natural and genuinely functional. He is large and he is ready, and his expression is the expression of someone who has issued a challenge and is now in the process of honoring it. The slight performance of generosity of someone who expects to demonstrate something to 500 people who are watching. Bruce Lee stands before him. No stance, arms at sides. The specific non-arrangement of someone who has moved so far past the need for a formal starting position that the concept has become irrelevant. The body available for whatever the next moment requires without requiring any particular configuration to make it available. His expression is what it has been since Seagal approached the railing, which is calm and direct, and carrying nothing that is not necessary. 500 people are very quiet. The industrial lights of the Olympic auditorium hum above the competition floor. Outside on Grand Avenue, the Tuesday morning continues its indifferent transit, entirely unaware that inside this building 500 people have stopped breathing. Seagal moves first. He moves the way he has moved through 13 years of training, with the specific committed force of someone whose size and skill have always been sufficient, and who has no reason to believe they will not be sufficient now. His right arm comes forward in the opening technique of his Aikido practice, a movement that has worked in this specific way on every training partner and every sparring opponent for years, a movement that his body knows completely, that his nervous system has grooved through 10,000 repetitions into something automatic and reliable and real. It is a real technique executed by a real martial artist, and it travels toward Bruce Lee with the genuine force and genuine commitment of someone who is not performing, but doing. Bruce Lee is not there when it arrives. He has moved left and slightly forward simultaneously, a displacement so minimal that the 500 people watching will later argue about whether they saw it. The specific quality of movement that removes a target from a line of force without requiring the target to travel any significant distance, simply steps offline by exactly the amount the situation requires, and no more. Seagull's technique completes itself through empty air. His body, committed fully to the movement, carries its momentum forward into the space where Bruce Lee was and finds nothing. In the fraction of a second that follows, Bruce Lee's right hand moves. Not a punch, not a strike, in the conventional sense of the word. A single precise contact at the specific point on Seagull's throat, where the larynx sits exposed between the muscles on either side. The point that the body protects instinctively in every fighting system, because the body understands what is there, even when the mind does not fully articulate it. The point where a calibrated force delivered with exact placement does not need to be large to be total. Bruce Lee's fingers arrive at that point with the full transfer of 20 years of daily work concentrated into a contact that lasts less than a tenth of a second and delivers its information completely. What the information says is this: breathe. And for a moment, Steven Seagal cannot. The throat closes around the contact point, the way throats close when they receive this specific signal, the involuntary muscular response of a body that has been told by its own nervous system that the airway requires protection, and the result is the specific sensation of air that will not move. The sudden absence of the thing that has been available every moment of every day of 20 years of life and training. The specific panic that arrives not from pain, but from the gap where breathing was and is not. His legs do not receive the message that keeps legs upright. The message they receive instead is the message that a body sends when the most fundamental thing it requires has been briefly interrupted. And that message is fall. And Seagal falls. 6 feet 4 inches and 240 pounds of 20-year-old martial artist going down to the competition floor of the Olympic auditorium in the specific way that large bodies go down when they go down completely. Not a stumble, not a controlled descent, but a fall. The full length of him arriving on the floor, while his hands go to his throat and his mouth opens for air that is already beginning to return, but has not fully returned yet. The body's systems reasserting themselves in the sequence. They always reassert themselves slowly enough that the 5 seconds he spends on the floor with his hands at his throat are 5 seconds of the most clarifying experience his 20 years have yet produced. The Olympic auditorium does not make a sound for 4 full seconds. 500 people who have spent their lives in martial arts, who have seen throws and knockouts and submissions, and every variety of technique that human beings have developed for the purpose of stopping other human beings, are completely silent, because what they have just watched does not fit into any of those categories cleanly, which is to say, it fits into all of them simultaneously, which is to say it is something that arrived and completed itself in a duration so brief and with a precision so absolute that the 500 people watching are still processing the before and have not yet finished arriving at the after. Bruce Lee is standing exactly where he was standing when Seagal fell. His right hand is at his side. His expression has not changed since he accepted the challenge at the railing, which is to say it is calm and direct, and carrying nothing that is not necessary. The expression of someone for whom what just happened was simply what was required in the moment, and is now complete. Seagal's breath returns. It returns the way breath returns after this specific kind of interruption, which is all at once and with the specific relief of something that was briefly absent and is now present again, and he draws it in with the particular quality of someone who has just been reminded of something they had not previously thought to be grateful for. He rolls to his side. He pushes himself to his knees. He takes another breath. He looks up at Bruce Lee, standing above him, and his expression is an expression his face has not worn before this morning. The expression of a 20-year-old who arrived at the Olympic Auditorium with 13 years of training and absolute certainty, and is leaving with something more valuable than either, which is the specific knowledge that there is always someone who has done the work longer and deeper and more completely, and that this knowledge does not diminish what he has built, but simply places it accurately within a larger picture that he could not see from inside his own certainty. He gets to his feet. He straightens. He looks at Bruce Lee directly and says, "You are a master," in the tone of someone who is not completing a bargain, but stating a fact. The flat, honest delivery of someone who has just learned something real in the most direct classroom available, and is acknowledging the lesson with the dignity it deserves. Bruce Lee looks at him for a moment. He nods once. Then he walks back to the third row of the bleachers, picks up his dark jacket, puts it on, and walks toward the exit of the Olympic Auditorium with the same unhurried economy with which he entered it, moving through 500 people who part around him now with a different quality of attention than the crowd that did not notice him when he arrived. And the Tuesday morning outside on Grand Avenue continues as it was continuing before, indifferent and ongoing, carrying the city forward into afternoon the way mornings always carry cities forward, without pausing for what happened inside any particular building, as all mornings do, as all mornings will. Steven Seagal stands in the middle of the competition floor for a moment after Bruce Lee has gone, surrounded by 500 people who are beginning to find their voices again, the auditorium slowly reassembling its normal noise around the specific silence he is still standing inside. His two training partners approach him. They say nothing. There is nothing to say that the floor has not already said more clearly. He looks at the point on the competition floor where he landed, the specific square of hardwood that received him 7 seconds after he issued a challenge he believed was safe to issue, and he stands there long enough to understand that the distance between what he knew this morning when he walked in and what he knows now is not a small distance, is in fact the largest distance he has ever traveled, and he traveled it in 7 seconds on a Tuesday in July, without going anywhere at all. The tournament organizer in the gray suit approaches him quietly and asks if he is all right. Seagal says yes. He says it the way people say yes when they mean something more complicated than yes. The yes of someone who is physically unharmed and is processing something that has nothing to do with the physical. The tournament organizer nods and returns to his table, because he has a tournament to run, and the afternoon divisions begin in 40 minutes, and the Olympic Auditorium does not pause for the education of 20-year-olds, however significant that education may be. Seagal watches him go. Then he looks at the exit through which Bruce Lee left, the specific door in the specific wall of the specific building where a Tuesday morning in July 1972 delivered something that 13 years of training had not, which is the precise location of the boundary of what he knows, drawn not in theory but in hardwood, drawn in 7 seconds, drawn in the specific absence of air that his throat remembers and will remember, and that will be present in some form every time he takes a stance for the rest of his career. Not as fear, not as doubt, but as the specific useful knowledge of someone who has stood at the edge of their own certainty and looked over it and come back with something that certainty alone could never have produced.